Chapin Theater in Orlando, Florida, it's The Gathering Live with your hosts, Heath Mulligan, Anthony Casey, Steven Sheets, and now, here's your host, Heath Mulligan.
Hey, welcome to The Gathering Live, one of our first pre-shows here on the final day, and it is just...
Final day.
Oh my goodness, and a lot of anticipation going into this day. We want to welcome our special guest with us today, Jim and Jerolyn Bogear from the River Church in Sacramento, California. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
They have been, if you've been watching the live stream, they have been the evening host for the Gathering rallies, and just have known them for a long time and just appreciate their ministry. And one part of their ministry is these books they've written. You guys have written two books, Faith Legacy for Couples and also Faith Legacy from a Parenting Standpoint. My question is, how hard is it to write books on these topics while also living out the principles every day?
It's a great question, one we've wrestled with. You know, so many experts write something and you're like, wow, we're just glad our kids turned out halfway decent.
Right.
So we often joke as the experts, they turned out pretty well in spite of, at least me, got all their mom's good attributes. But we actually wrote the Faith Legacy for Parenting first.
Right.
But we didn't intend to write books. So it was what we were living out and began to put names to it. And then we were blessed to share this with others that wanted to see that model. And so that's really where it came from. But it is tough, because you can say a lot of things, right?
Yeah. Right.
In the ministry, in marriage, in family, but how do you live it out? And we really had to own these and begin to identify these, that we wanted them as us, and living it out that way.
Yeah.
And even though we don't do it perfectly, of course, it lays our foundation. Having a vision and values for our family, it's always something to come back to. And it's kind of our matrix to follow along of how are we doing? And we just keep coming back to it. There are many times even in disciplining our kids, I would say, all right, go get this book from the other room, and on the way, check out value number 4, which is positive attitude. And
There's a great story that, do you have a minute on that one?
Oh,
I think it
sure,
was great
sure.
when she literally did that to one of ours.
well, I homeschooled our kids, and
Right.
she was having a really bad attitude about school that day.
Wow.
And I said, go get that book, and on your way back, check out value number 4. And she came back and she sat down and she said, you're right, Mom. I was having a really bad attitude. I'm sorry. And that was the win moment. Those can always happen.
Only tell us about those.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the other ones I'm telling
We have
you.
enough failure stories,
yeah.
but we don't have enough time.
There's
on
another
the
book
podcast.
coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So
Faith
yeah, that's a
Legacy
great
fails.
question. But again, it was birthed out of what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
And then we began to share with people, and they're like, we like that. But it helps. Even we don't talk about how to discipline your child in the book, but that's how we've done that. So it's a part of that.
Yeah. You know, so I'm going to go off the cuff here. We have questions for our guests if you didn't know that. But as you were talking, I was going through both books, and one of the things that hit me was intentionality. Right now I'm working with a situation where it's a husband and wife, and things are not going well. And one of the things that's glaring is inattention to their relationship over almost 20 years, and all of a sudden, talk a little bit about that, because one of the things that just screams to me when I looked at these books was that this whole thing of couples and parenting is very intentional, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things some people tell us is they think our books are just very practical, which we like. We're practical
Sure.
people. We want you to have a tool to use. So it's being intentional, but really focusing and staying focused on what you're doing, what you're about.
Yeah.
If I'm going to give my life to this man, I want to be sure I do it right. And too often we just are trying to survive through the day.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and you made a great point. This couple you're dealing with, it didn't happen overnight.
No.
It took, like you
Right.
said, 20 years. So it doesn't get repaired overnight. It begins in that process. But Jerolyn mentioned earlier, and it may sound a little bit almost stoic, but in the sense of she's the intelligent, good-looking, talented one. I just tag along for the ride. But we begin to figure this out, that we need a practical application, and so we really call it business plans. And some of our corporate stuff that we're getting to do, and people in that, they understand that, but they have not put a game plan together for their own marriage or their parenting, and it's amazing to me how we win everywhere else, but we're not winning where it counts most at home. And so our business plan sounds to me, very practical, almost sterile a little bit. Well, how can it? Because we're not in a business partnership. We're in a love relationship, and we love each other. But we need the action steps to make it happen. We put a business plan to keep us, as she said, centered and focused and directed.
And life is chaotic. It's going to take over.
Right.
If you don't.
And this is the point.
Is their plan? Yeah, it helps to stay focused when the bad stuff happens.
Exactly.
I've got a question for you guys as a ministry couple, as pastors of a church. Well, each of us as pastors. I have my wife. She's sitting out on the front row right now. And when we're involved in something like the gathering or something backstage or an event where I'm emceeing, there's often times where we are a ministry couple giving a lot. You guys have been investing in books and ministry and events like this. How do you intentionally make time for each other, even amidst a time where it's supposed to be for couples, like the gathering, it's supposed to be for ministry couples, but there's not a lot of time for that? What do you guys do practically?
Go ahead.
We set aside calendar. One of the things we've learned to do is calendar everything and put it in the plan. And so we go back to, as Jerolyn said earlier, to our values. And a value is honest communication. We are setting time away to make sure that we're communicating clearly. As we express those needs to each other, we have set time and spaces. We got to do a seminar this morning specifically on ministry and marriage. And for us, one of those sacred places is our back patio. And we have carved out, this is our time, and this is some of the most we talk about intimacy, and for the guys, it's all about sex. And we talk about we need the emotional intimacy and the conversation.
Very good.
And we have created, again, on purpose, we have set aside time to do that, because now we're not getting it this week.
Right.
We hope to provide that for everybody, many others, and you guys are serving that way. So what are you doing intentional? What are you doing with plan? What are you doing with your values? What are you choosing to live by and commit to?
It all comes out to priorities. God is our first priority. Each other's our next. And Jim's even said from the pulpit, if I have to let the church go, I will. I will not sacrifice my family and my wife for the church.
Yes, we will sacrifice the church. And no offense to the church, but it's God's.
And,
That's exactly and if we fail here, I have no right to lead anywhere else. I believe that. And I mean in the best sense of the word. I know people have gone through struggles, and we help couples right where they are, and parents right where they are. We're not demeaning that. We've all gone through struggles. Some of us have gone through divorce and all that. So we want to help them. But philosophically, spiritually, biblically, we are committed to the family first, because if we win where it's important at home, we then get the opportunity to lead and win elsewhere.
Very good. Wow.
I love it.
All right. Listen,
Were you going to ask the... So we're talking about legacy, all right? One of the legacies of the Wesleyan denomination are events like this.
Yes.
So how do events like this, how do they impact you as a couple and as a family as you leave from here? We have put all our energy into this, but then there's also this sense of what's next. So what's the legacy that these events can leave on a couple and a family?
Well, I think part of it is just being with other ministry couples. And we're all in this together. I know in our seminar this morning, we were talking about the stresses of ministry, and one person said loneliness. And so here, you're not lonely. We got lots of people to associate with, and that can have a huge impact on going back and saying, I can do this. It's a re-energizing, a refocusing on your ministry, but also then the family as well. They've done a great job of providing a lot of things, talking about family and marriages here. So.
Right. Hey, if you want to get either one of their books, you can pick them up at wesleyan.org/WPH. I have them both, highly recommend both of them. This event has been watched by people all around the world, and many of you have been using the official hashtag, hashtag G15Clergy. And we just want to share with you some of the messages we have received. And I'm not joking here, okay? I tend to exaggerate sometimes.
Yeah, all the time.
But literally from around the world. So, Tony.
Yeah, and some of it is old technology, this thing called email.
Yes.
Someone emailed in and said, guys, I wanted to thank you for this live broadcast of The Gathering, as I'm not able to attend this year. It's amazing, and it's the next best thing to being there, and that comes from Pastor Connie in Nova Scotia, Canada.
You guys said you did a seminar this morning. Kevin Beers tweeted from your seminar. It says, "We love seminar, building a legacy of faith and a healthy ministry marriage with Jim and Jerolyn Bogear." So thanks, Kevin, for tweeting that out.
Elizabeth Rhino wrote this from a seminar, the We Worship in Songwriting seminar. She wrote, "What one generation sings, the next generation believes," and that was said by J.D. Walt.
And listen, this next one, we have a picture that Matthew's going to throw up for you. It comes from a guy named Steven Sheets, and it says,
"Where's he from?"
Well, some of our denomination's greatest leaders, and me and Heath. And those, you see the picture there, they're with John Maxwell and Kevin Myers.
Yeah.
On Facebook, Ashley TG, one of our behind-the-scenes runners, she wrote, "Thanks to the Abbey Coffee Company for taking care of my coffee fix this week." And I've seen people with Abbey Coffee Company cups all over the place. They've been providing coffee for everyone all week.
And Heath, this next one's a great one.
So I put a post on Facebook just talking about the experience for me personally this week and my hope for the church. And Mohammed Saeed from Mozambique sent this message. "I like your language, sir. All things are possible with God. We may not have a look of it now, but the potential is there. We're all willing to grow, to change, to be pace setters and trailblazers. To God be the glory." At what time going to be the live service? Mozambican time. And I sent him back 6:30 p.m. and 2 o'clock a.m. your time. Hey, Mohammed, you don't have to worry about it. You can, if you're not watching live, you can go to WesleyanEvents.com, and after the gathering, you can watch all of these events. There's been a couple of times where we've been working on stuff, and I've missed a little bit of the worship or a little bit of the message, and I didn't panic about it. I mean, there was one night I was waiting on a friend I hadn't seen in a while. I was in the lobby of the theater watching the worship on the live stream, and just I'm kind of, people are like, "What is that guy doing? Is he trying to get better reception?" Now I'm just praising the Lord in the lobby, watching the live stream. And like I said, we've got our rally this morning with Dr. Joel and Becky Hunter. And then tonight, our pre-show will start at 6:30. The main rally begins at 7 with Kyle Ray from Kentwood Community Church. Looking forward to hearing him. Today's theme with the Hunters is We Love. And Jerolyn, my first question is for you. And we talked about this a little bit, but I don't know if you know this, but a pastor's spouse carries an unimaginable weight. How, with this, in the sense of this theme, We Love, how do you carry and maintain an authentic love for your husband and your family and your church?
I think that's, first of all, thanks for that revelation to her. I know, new news for her, so thank you.
We're trying to help. Trying to leave a legacy.
Well, first of all, I asked him before we got married, "You're not going to be a senior pastor, right?" And he said, "No."
Right.
And I said, "Okay, I'll marry you." Well, the Lord had to deal with me on that one later. But, to be honest, I don't feel a huge weight. And part of that's a credit the man I got. He protects me from a lot of things. So I don't feel a weight. But when you ask about authentic love, it sounds like the whole spiritual answer. But it really is my time with the Lord that I am focusing on. I am a servant of Him first, and I'm in the Word and I'm in prayer, and that's where the love is going to come from anyway. And I've got easy people to love. We have a wonderful body in our church, and the thing is, I am an introvert, so I do have to deal with that a little bit. But He gives me love for people, and I know that just sounds so spiritual, but it really is the truth.
You know, it looks like we're doing good on time. I have another question, and that is with ministry. When a church hires a pastor, there's a saying, they're not hiring, my spouse. Yeah. And I get that. At the same time, there are some expectations about that as well. What's the balance of that? Because a spouse does matter in ministry. And so again, what's the balance, and what can a local church expect as far as that's concerned?
I think that's unique. Now, we planted this church.
Okay.
So there's a lot of things that some people have had to deal with in an established church.
Right.
You had to inherit somebody else's problems.
Right.
I just created all of ours. And so I have no one else to blame.
Yeah.
But it allows us to set that up. So
No
I think
history
it depends
when
on
you're planning.
It depends
Yeah.
on the
Exactly.
situation, the scenario. I think part of that, the location, the culture of the area, all those kinds of things factor into it. But we have to be careful that we're not resentful. And we struggle with that early on in the ministry. Hey, I'm protecting her at all costs. Well, I want her involved, and we began to learn through our marriage, we want to be on the same, we
Sure.
use the illustration, pulling on the same side of the rope.
Right.
There's enough things that we pull against each other
Right.
in marriage when we get selfish,
Right.
and when we become selfless, we do. Even in our arguments, we have to stop and say, you know what, I really love you. I really do. We want us to win more than we want me to win.
That's good.
And that really helped us because you guys know
Yeah.
there's all these things pulling against us, and we are pulling on the same side of the rope because if we win, it helps us. And so I think the priority, again, we've said it, it's intentional, it's on purpose, but I think you do help set those ground
Sure,
rules and those
sure.
expectations
Yeah,
with the church along the
Yeah,
journey.
I think your observation that sometimes there's a history, and so you may have to go ahead and plow the ground all over again and
Yes.
set new expectations.
But early in our ministry, I did make him tell the board they were hiring him, not me. I really did. He was a youth pastor,
Yeah.
and he told them that. And I think I hindered our ministry in that. And I learned later that part of one of our values is unwavering support. And part of my supporting him is being a partner with him in the ministry. It doesn't mean I'm there every time everything's happening. It's his job. But I am there right with him, and he knows it, and the people know it as well.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not a
good.
tension, it's a together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
good.
that's right. That's right. So, as we get ready for the rally, again, the theme is we love. I think Bob Roberts said it the other night. That's the heart of being a Wesleyan. So, Steven, as we get ready for this rally, and you think of that theme, we love. What do you hope? What do you hope as you and Jess sit there and take it all in? What do you hope you take out of it?
Again, a refocusing of our attention on love has been a theme of the gathering this week, and so for me and my wife to be sitting there on front, there's been numerous already squeezes during the messages of things that are already connecting. So I think my hope out of this is that the drive to the airport tomorrow, the flights tomorrow, the conversations that we get to have will continue to revolve around the things that we're being, again, there's a lot of stress and all this stuff, so we haven't had a lot of time to talk yet, but in being able to take mental notes and live tweets, those kinds of things, and decipher those things and debrief on what we've taken in, but keeping that focus on this subject of our need to love.
Yeah,
Good.
Tony, what about you?
You know what? I am so calibrated because I'm working with someone right now whose marriage is just really on the rocks, and I don't know, and so it's turned me inside to even reading, going through this. I was very convicted about some things, and so this whole thing of intentionality. That's why I asked you the question. So it's very personal with me. It's like, I want to invest all over again, even in my own marriage. I don't want to take those things for granted. And so already in my own heart and life, I've been kind of trimming some things up, areas where I feel God convicted me deeply. So I'm just going to sit back and let God do more surgery on me during this session, repent where I need to repent, and go forward.
Yeah, I go back to something Jerolyn said about it all starts with her time alone with God. I think this is
so
often a time for people to kind of recalibrate things. We were talking
Right.
this morning, Steven, about how sometimes we come to these and we see guys that are, successful, and we're like, man, why can't I be like that guy? And we think, well, I can speak as good as him, or I'm as funny as he is. But I think what we miss sometimes is people are successful because of character. It's that bedrock foundation, and that begins with the love.
Right.
The love you have for the Father, the love you have for your spouse, the love you have for your church. So for me, it's making sure, especially in my context and my situation and family stuff, is am I filling up? A guy from ESPN used to call it his passion bucket. He would say, my passion bucket is full. Right. Am I filling that up and overflowing into my family? Speaking of overflowing,
the producer's back here.
This theater's overflowing, and we're so excited, again, to bring this rally to you. We want to thank Jim and Jerolyn Bogear, not only for joining us, but for their works and for their work here. You'll see them tonight in the rally. Thanks so much. This has been The Gathering Live, and we'll see you later.
Bye.